I got the restraining order by certified mail while I was still on the carrier. 11 years of marriage ended in a manila envelope. My name is Michael, 39 years old, Lieutenant Commander with the Navy SEALs. I'd been in the Persian Gulf for 6 months when Elena decided she was done waiting. The subject line read, "This is for the best," and the message itself was 4 sentences long. She'd already filed for divorce. She'd already drained our investment account. She'd already moved her personal trainer Alex into our house in San Diego, and she'd taken custody of our dog. I read the letter twice, folded it carefully, locked it in my footlocker, went for a 5-mile run on the deck, and said nothing to anyone. When I got back to my quarters that night, I replied with one word: received. That was it. No argument, no begging, no threats. Jackson, my teammate, noticed something was off. "You good, Commander?" he asked, not looking up from his gear check. "Yeah," I said. "Just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military guys know when to leave things alone. Truth is, I wasn't surprised. 8 months before deployment, things had changed. Small things. Elena stopped asking about my missions, started working late at her marketing firm, started going to CrossFit 5 times a week but never seemed to get more defined. New wardrobe, new friends I never met, new passwords on her laptop that I didn't confront her, didn't start checking her messages or following her around. That's not who I am. But I wasn't blind either. So I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured important documents in a safety deposit box across town: birth certificate, marriage license, house deed with only my name on it thanks to the military housing loan, my service medals and benefits paperwork. I moved my father's watch and my mother's old jewelry to the same box, things that mattered. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting part of my pay there. Not enough that she'd notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from zero if things went south. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the base and said, "Stay safe out there." Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a colleague, not a husband heading into a war zone that I should have known then. But part of me still hoped I was wrong, that I wasn't. What she didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment. And what she didn't understand was that I never start fights, but I do finish them. I met Elena at a charity gala in 2012. I was home between deployments, staying with my old academy buddy Chris in San Diego. She was finishing her MBA but ended up working at a boutique marketing agency instead. Better work-life balance, she said. We were married 10 months later. Elena used to say she was proud of my service, though she never quite understood it. Her father was a corporate attorney, her brother a neurosurgeon, no military in her family. She'd ask when I was going to get a real career, not realizing that after 12 years, the Navy was my career. Not just something I was doing until something better came along. We bought our house in 2015. Nothing extravagant, but it was ours. 4 bedrooms, medium yard, quiet neighborhood with other military families. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the VA loan was in my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what married people do. Share things. My dad died 2 years after we got married, stroke, while fishing on his favorite lake. My mom passed 4 years later, pancreatic cancer that took her in 6 weeks. They left me some money. Not a fortune, but enough that Elena and I could pay off her student loans and still have a cushion. I deployed 5 times during our marriage. Iraq, Somalia, 2 classified locations, and finally the Gulf. Each time I came home, Elena seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, like she was playing a role she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife, she told me once after I mentioned possibly accepting another tour. I'm tired of explaining to people why I'm always alone at events. I understood that, I did. But the teams were the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2022, things started changing. Small stuff at first. Elena got irritated when I called during her client dinners. Started talking about how her friend Vanessa had divorced her husband and was living her best life now. Started making comments about how we didn't really have anything in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away at marketing conferences I'd never heard of, the designer clothes, the expensive gym membership she rarely seemed to use for actual exercise. I should have confronted her. But that's not how I handle things, never have. My father taught me to think before I speak. To be sure, before I acted, so I watched and I prepared quietly, because my gut was telling me something was coming. And in my line of work, you learn to trust your gut. 3 weeks after getting the restraining order, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed a notification from our investment app. Another withdrawal, $267,000. Almost everything that was left. I set my coffee down and opened the app. The joint account balance was down to $389.52. Our investment portfolio for $120,000 we'd built up over years was gone completely, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Martinez, one of the guys from my unit, glanced over. Bad news. I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night, I called our investment firm from the Secure Communications Center. Turned out Elena had been moving assets for months. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers started the day after I deployed, and I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their kids, their wives, their parents. Normal life happening all around me while mine was burning down. That's when Jackson found me. Heard from Martinez that you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal stuff, but Jackson had pulled me out of a firefight in Fallujah once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Filed for divorce and got a restraining order while I was on mission last week. Jackson didn't give me the usual, I'm sorry, or that's rough, or you'll find someone better. He just asked, what's your plan? Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my tablet and logged into our home security system. Something Elena probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange Porsche in our driveway, a man I'd never seen before walking our dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my navy hoodie, and there was Elena, laughing in the kitchen. I'd renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, something colder, clearer. I closed the tablet and pulled out my phone, made a list. Call Thomas, Navy buddy who became a corporate attorney. Check the VA loan terms. Contact captain about emergency leave. Review house equity documents, something Elena mentioned casually last year. Check the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning an operation. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about strategy. AT0500. Before my shift started, I sent an email to Thomas with the subject line, need legal help, discreet and urgent. His reply came an hour later. Call me. Secure line only. When I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch and let her own actions become the trap point. 6 weeks later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Elena I was coming home. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just checked into a hotel in downtown San Diego under a different name and contacted Thomas. We met at a coffee shop 15 miles outside of town. You look like hell, he said, sliding into the booth. Feel like it too, I replied. Thomas handed me a folder. Everything we discussed, the house deed, loan documents, bank statements, and this. He pulled out a separate paper. Found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a home equity line of credit application with my signature on it. Except it wasn't my signature, not quite. Someone had tried to copy it but missed details. The middle initial was wrong, and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. Elena did this. I asked, though I already knew the answer. Thomas nodded. 2 months ago, used the equity to pull out $450,000. Your signature is required for that since the VA loan is in your name only. Forge my signature, take out a loan against our house, then clear out our accounts and divorce me, I said. Busy woman. It gets better, Thomas said. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. He's got a record securities fraud charge from 2021. I took a deep breath. What are my options? Several, Thomas said. But first you need to decide what you want. I thought about it. I want what's legally mine, and I want her to understand consequences. Thomas smiled. Then here's what we do. The next day, I drove past our house. Her boyfriend's Porsche was gone, but Elena's Tesla was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while. Thought about knocking on the door, confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met with the loan officer who had processed the equity line, showed him my military ID, showed him the real signature on my driver's license, showed him the forged documents. His face went pale. "I'll need to report this immediately." "I understand," I said. "I've already filed a police report." That night, I got a text from Elena. "Who have you been talking to at the bank?" Alex said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork contesting the equity line due to fraud, registered formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Elena called. I let it go to voicemail. "Michael, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." Like adults? The same words from her email. I still didn't respond. Thomas called that afternoon. "They froze the equity line money. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your Range Rover, right? The one in your name." "Yeah. He got pulled over this morning, driving with a suspended license from that fraud charge. They impounded the vehicle." "Good," I said. He also had some interesting things in the car: client files from the marketing firm where Elena works. Files he shouldn't have access to. I closed my eyes. She's been sharing confidential client information. Looks that way. The police are investigating potential corporate espionage. I hung up and sat on the edge of the hotel bed. This was getting bigger than I'd expected. Part of me wanted to call Elena, warn her old habits. But then I remembered the security camera footage. My house. My dog. My life given away like it meant nothing. No. This was the path now. I couldn't turn back. And honestly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. Name was Reynolds. Tall woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "This happens more often than you'd think," she said, spreading documents across her desk. "Spouse deploys. Other spouse sees an opportunity. What happens now?" I asked. "We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent equity line. But there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone." "How much?" "About a third. $148,000. I leaned forward. "Where did it go?" Reynolds hesitated. "I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my name forged, my money stolen." She nodded slowly, then turned her computer screen toward me. "These are the transfers out of the equity account." I scanned the list, multiple transfers to someone named Victor Mercer. Not Alex. Someone else I'd never heard of. "Who's Victor Mercer?" I asked. Reynolds shrugged. "Not my department, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records." I called Thomas as soon as I left the bank. "Victor Mercer," he repeated. "Let me run a check." An hour later, he called back. "Got it." Victor Mercer is an investment advisor, specializes in offshore accounts, quick transfers, gray area stuff. "She was planning to move the money overseas," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "Looks that way." The deposits were probably the first step to get the money out of U.S. jurisdiction. But here's where it gets interesting. Mercer has done business with Alex Donovan before. Alex Donovan is, yes, your wife's boyfriend. They've handled 4 transactions together in the past 18 months. I sat down on a park bench trying to process this. So this wasn't just Elena leaving me for some guy. This was, what, a planned operation? "Maybe," Thomas said carefully. "I did some digging into Alex Donovan. He has a pattern, gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. For cases I found so far. Each time, significant assets get diverted offshore, then he moves on. And Elena, she knew about this. Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too. Or maybe she's in on it." I rubbed my face. This wasn't just about Elena betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated. And other military families had been victims. "What do we do?" I asked. "I've already contacted the SEC's Financial Crimes Division," Thomas said. This crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested. That night, I sat in my hotel room with a whiskey, thinking about everything, wondering if Elena had been playing me our entire marriage, or if she'd gotten swept up in Alex's scheme, wondering if it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Elena again. Michael, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud and Alex got arrested for driving your Range Rover. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Who is Victor Mercer?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped, started again, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about. $148,000. I wrote, "Multiple transfers. Offshore accounts." No response for 10 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning Thomas called. SEC wants to meet. They've been investigating Donovan and Mercer for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open. For the first time since getting that restraining order, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. That I met with the SEC agents at their field office in San Diego, Agent Carter and Agent Ramirez. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents Thomas and I had gathered. Your case helps establish a pattern, Agent Carter explained. Shows intent, organization, makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents. What about Elena? I asked. My wife, ex-wife. The agents exchanged looks. We're still determining her level of involvement, Ramirez said carefully. Did she ever mention financial difficulties? Pressure to access the home equity? I thought back. She kept saying we were underleveraged, that we should put our equity to work. I didn't see the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Carter made a note. When did that start? About 8 months ago, around the time she must have met Alex. And the equity line? Ramirez asked. Never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed. They asked more questions, took more notes. When we finished, Carter handed me her card. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Donovan. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded. Understood. That evening I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our house. Alex's Porsche was back. Must have gotten it out of impound. Elena's Tesla was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Elena. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Mission Beach tomorrow. I showed the text to Thomas over breakfast the next day. Don't go, he advised. Nothing good can come from talking to her right now. I won't, I said. But I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her. We drove to our house at 9:30 a.m., parked across the street. At 9:45, Elena came out, got in her car and drove away, heading toward Mission Beach. Now what? Thomas asked. Now we wait, I said. 30 minutes later. A car pulled up, sleek black Mercedes, no markings. Victor Mercer. Alex came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. Should we follow them? Thomas asked. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior. They upload to cloud storage. Thomas smiled. You didn't mention that before. Never came up, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and angled the screen so Thomas could see. Mercer and Alex were in our living room. Mercer was reviewing documents. Alex was pointing at something on a laptop. I turned up the volume. Should transfer the final amount by the end of the week, Mercer was saying. I've got the Cayman account ready to receive. How much can we move? Alex asked. Another $300K if you can get it. The restraining order was smart. Keeps him away while we finish. What about the husband? Elena says he's causing trouble. Mercer waved dismissively. Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away. I turned to Thomas. You getting this? He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Carter with a short message. Happening now. 45 minutes later, our house was surrounded by federal vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Mercer and Alex out in handcuffs. My phone rang. Agent Carter. Got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said. Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to hide assets offshore. We're going to need a formal statement from you. Of course, I said. And Mr. Reeves. Your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed. I looked down the street. Elena was standing on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as federal agents carried boxes of documents from our house. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Carter said. On what? On what she knew, and on what you want. I watched Elena for a long moment. 11 years of marriage. Good years at the beginning before whatever this had become. I just want what's right, I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Alex and Mercer both took plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a multi-state operation targeting military families. Elena maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme, said Alex had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing, said the equity line was his idea. She'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, a signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that certified letter, no fault, clean break. All things considered that on the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Carter. Alex Donovan was sentenced today, 12 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Mercer got 15. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you, I said. There's something else, she added. We found evidence they've done this to 14 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. After we hung up, I sat on the balcony of my rental apartment watching the sunset over the Pacific, thinking about those other families. Other men and women who deployed thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness that I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down Alex and Mercer's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Elena. I never meant for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house, couldn't stand to live in it anymore. Too many memories. Too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small property outside of Coronado, 3 bedrooms, 5 acres of land, ocean view in the distance, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Navy. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough that I got a dog, a Belgian Malinois named Scout. Started doing security consulting for private firms. Nothing flashy, but it kept my mind engaged and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Elena, wondered where she ended up. Thomas heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Connecticut, working at another marketing firm. Starting over, I guess that I didn't hate her anymore, didn't much feel anything about her to be honest. She'd made her choices, and so had I. One evening, I got an email from a woman in Virginia Beach. Her husband was in the Marines, deployed when Alex and Mercer tried to run their scheme on her. The SEC had given her my name as part of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read it twice, then saved it to my important folder. Some days, when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I'd read that email and remember that something good had come from all of it. Last I heard, Alex was still in prison. Mercer too. The system worked. For once. As for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet day at a time, building something new, something that couldn't be stolen or forged or betrayed, something that was mine. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the quietest revenge is simply taking back what's yours and helping others in the process. For more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Remember, sometimes life's greatest victories come from the battles we never asked to fight.